Hi everybody, this is a small video that showcases my product, process and detailed steps that took place while making it. First, here's a small brief about my project. My target audience is the students of MIP 5 and my project is to redesign their homeroom for a variety of reasons that resulted in the hindrance of student mental output, lack of efficiency and loss of productivity. Through a feasible, ergonomic, creative and intuitive design, I have aimed to solve this problem. The problems are a non-customizable furniture, the lack of speakers, immense glare, poor wall finishes, the lack of storage, disturbances caused by typing, an environment that demotes productivity, noise from outside the class, poor color scheme, and the lack of a dedicated reading section. In order to choose my final design, I had to brainstorm a couple of ideas. Keeping in mind most of the specifications, I made 4 designs which I thought to be applicable to solving this design problem. They were feasible ideas and I was sure to mention every single measurement on the 2D drawings. I then chose my final design, outlined the border with a sketch pen and made several detailed drawings for the product as visible in the time lapse. For making the drawings, I used a protractor, compass, pencil, sketch pen, eraser, ruler, a right angle, set squares and art paper. It took nearly 1.5 hours. And finally, I started making my product using the online version of Google SketchUp. Side note, this model is a version which I made before finishing the product, which is why you cannot see the chairs. This video was made pre-hand, but the final product will be shown at the end with each and every single detail. I started off by identifying the scale used on the physical model and calculated the dimensions in reality. I then chose the scale, precision and units on SketchUp. So I started by making the basic shell of the homeroom. I used the rectangle tool to make a shell of 28 by 30 feet. After I made the walls of 9 inches thickness and height of 11 feet, I moved on to making the doors of the class. I used the door in our current classroom and made changes to them. The door, which is of height 7 feet and width 4 feet, was inspired from our current door and used as a reference. I added indents to the door in the shape of squares and added panels to it. I then copied the door and placed it inside the wall, positioning it exactly opposite the entrance door on the same plane. After which I started to make the cubby spaces for the students. The total width was 8 feet 1 inches while the total vertical length was 4 feet 8.5 inches. The thickness of the wood used here was half an inch and this cubby space was designed to store items of all 24 students. Soon after which I started making the pin board. This was the dimensions 8 feet by 3 feet and the thickness of the wood here was 1/4 of an inch. This went directly over the cubby spaces. This did not take so much time, so I also made the student cupboard. I initially made the 4 feet by 6 feet 10 inches cupboard shell and added 1/4 of an inch thickness. And then added a top cover extruding slightly outwards. The cupboard was placed towards the left of the cubbies using the move tool. After 2 days, I started with making the interactive board. There was no design changes to this, so the 5 feet 10 inches diagonal smartboard was made ditto to the one we already have in class. The whiteboard also required no design changes. A big challenge for me was to use the follow me tool to create the curved edges of the board. I then added and clubbed them together and accurately placed them on the front face. Next, I made the L-shaped teacher's cupboard around the front right column. I added the legs to the cupboard and made 2 doors for each. It was challenging to make the cupboard handle. I had to make different planes and surfaces to make the perfect curved handle. In addition to that, I had to also make the podium. I made 2 semicircles of different radius and gave them height to make the podium. After all this, I decided to start working on the furniture. I started by making the individual 1 feet 6 inches by 2 feet 3 by 16th inch tables at a height of 2 feet 3 inches. I created a storage space under the table by extruding a rectangle at the base and adding the same handles I made for the cupboards. I then made the chair legs and gave it some height, and then created a semicircle rectangular base of dimensions 2 feet by 1 feet 6 inches. I then created the back support of height 1 feet 6 inches, created beams running across, and made the entire chair as a component. Just like the student individual tables, the teacher's table were tricky as I had to create two separate proportional rectangles and join them to create the slanted edges of the tabletop. The tabletop was 2 feet by 4 feet 3 inches. Moreover, I also had to make drawers and handles under the tabletop. For the teacher's table, I designed a separate chair with a slightly inward curved back support. I made this and placed it along with the table in the position I had decided. I then made it a component and rechecked all the measurements using the inbuilt measurement. After a gap of 2 days, I made all the windows for the homeroom, which had a total length of 205 inches. On the right is the main window in the lecture/studying section of the room with 7 closed windows and 1 open. I added window frames to it and a window handle to the openable window. I then copied the 2 feet by 55 inches open window and placed it in the reading section of the room for ventilation and natural light, using the guide points which I had created for myself. After which I had a major task, which was to make the round collaborator tables in the lecture section of radius 3 feet, the round tables in the reading section of radius 2 feet, and the chairs which had to be properly positioned around the table and to be made components. After a gap of 5 days, I made the pocket at the sliding doors. The base measurements of both the doors were accurate, but the indents and the handles to open and shut were not accurately positioned. I made the sliding door, added wood for the frame and dark glass for the center. The pocket door had a solid wood finish with black asphalt colored squares. I then made them components and used the move tool to place the sliding door between the lecture room and the computer room, and then perfectly aligned the pocket door between the reading and the computer sections. After making the 2 doors which would connect the partitions, I went on to create the actual partitions. The first partition is across the width of the room with a length of 28 feet and the height of 11 feet. I made the partitions glass but made the panels which would provide structure to the glass with asphalt black. I then made the second partition following the same guides and fluctuated the doors by a few inches to make it fit perfectly. After this, today I had some time left to make the speakers, which I copied from a design from an online website. This is the computer table, which is 8 feet long and 5 feet 4 inches wide. I copied and moved the same chairs that were in the individual tables and placed them around the table. I then moved on to import a beam rack from the warehouse and placed 2 of them accurately, one beside the partition and the other one beside the back column. Soon later, I designed 3 bookshelves for the reading section, one against the back wall and 2 on either side of the window. After this, I moved on to placing the 3 tables of radius 2 feet in the reading section. I placed them in the exact way mentioned in my initial design. The last day of working on the product, according to my timeline, I rechecked all the measurements and checked the accuracy of the model.
Hot damn, this some other shit. Not landing like a lover's wish. Getting thrown in a big old well. Cause there ain't no end to the fall for the other till you hit that shit that they just don't tell. Oh well, see. Some will they miss and then some will hit. Some will just kiss for the fun of it.